When a season ends in a traumatic way, the debate never stays limited to the final score. It spreads, it grows, it turns into blame, frustration, and a desperate search for answers. And in the case of the Philadelphia Eagles, the wild-card elimination against the San Francisco 49ers opened a wound that had been poked at all season long, but is now fully exposed. The fan base made its feelings clear. For many, Kevin Patullo cannot remain offensive coordinator after a year in which the most expensive offense in the NFL finished as one of the most predictable, inconsistent, and ineffective units in the playoffs. But as the noise outside the building grows louder, an important question emerges. How do the people who were actually inside the locker room see this situation? Some players avoided the topic. Others asked for patience. And then came a voice that carries a different kind of weight in Philadelphia. A voice no longer tied to contracts, job security, or internal politics. Jason Kelce spoke up. And when Jason Kelce talks about the Eagles, the entire city listens. During the Monday Night Football pregame show, Kelce didn't just defend Kevin Patullo, he did something even more impactful. He placed part of the responsibility directly on the players, and that changes the entire tone of the conversation. Kelce was blunt, almost uncomfortable for a fan base that is angry and searching for simple answers. He acknowledged that the offensive performance was bad. He called it unacceptable that the highest-paid offense in the league was merely mediocre. But at the same time, he made it clear that Patullo is not the lone villain many are trying to turn him into. According to Kelce, Kevin Patullo is a great coach, a competent professional, someone he knows personally and worked with during the final years of his career. And in his view, the biggest issue in that decisive game wasn't the scheme itself, but the players' inability to execute when the opportunities were there. That statement is uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable precisely because it forces a deeper reflection. It's far easier to point the finger at the offensive coordinator than to confront the fact that key players failed in the biggest moments. A.J. Brown dropped critical passes. Saquon Barkley failed to secure a ball in open space that could have shifted the momentum of the second half. Jalen Hurts rushed reads in crucial situations. None of that can be ignored. Kelce didn't say Patullo did a flawless job. Far from it. He was honest in admitting the offense underperformed all season, but his central point is different. There is a massive difference between a flawed game plan and flawed execution. And in Kelce's eyes, the Eagles had more than enough chances to win that game despite the offensive limitations. That perspective directly clashes with how most fans feel. For anyone who watched this team week after week, the offense looked stuck, predictable, lacking creativity, slow to adjust. While other playoff teams showcased offenses designed to stress defenses, create space, and manufacture advantages, the Eagles consistently appeared one step behind. And this is where the conversation becomes truly complicated. Kelce also gave credit to the opponent. He praised the defensive work done by Robert Saleh and highlighted Kyle Shanahan's creativity, especially his use of misdirection and trick plays to keep the 49ers offense functional, despite injuries and limitations. By doing that, Kelce drew a clear line. It's not enough to say the Eagles lost because their offense was bad. They lost because in a playoff environment, the opponent executed better when the game tightened, and Philadelphia didn't. That leads to a question that goes beyond Kevin Patullo. The real issue isn't just whether Patullo should stay or go. The real issue is whether this offense, as currently built and coached, can survive moments of maximum pressure, because this wasn't the first time it disappeared when the stakes were highest. Throughout the regular season, the Eagles were inconsistent. There were games where individual talent masked deeper issues, others where the defense carried the team, but rarely did the offense dominate from start to finish with rhythm, confidence, and aggression. In the playoffs, that comes at a cost. And while Kelce may be right that players must make plays, it's also true that good schemes help players win matchups. That's the foundation of the modern NFL. The best offenses don't just rely on talent, they create advantages, especially when the defense already knows what you want to do. It's impossible to watch the rest of the playoff field and not feel a sense of envy. Motion-heavy attacks, creative formations, constant pressure on defenses to communicate and adjust. All of that existed elsewhere, and rarely in Philadelphia. That comparison only deepens the frustration. So even with Jason Kelce's passionate defense, Kevin Patullo remains at the center of the storm, not because he is the only one at fault, but because he represents an offensive philosophy that failed to deliver when expectations were highest. At the same time, Kelce touched on a sensitive truth that cannot be ignored. Changing the offensive coordinator doesn't erase execution errors. It doesn't make A.J. Brown catch a ball he dropped. It doesn't make Saquon Barkley secure a routine reception. It doesn't automatically fix a quarterback's decision-making under pressure. That duality makes the Eagles' decision extremely delicate. If the team keeps Patullo, it risks sending the message that this performance was acceptable. If it moves on, it risks ignoring deeper issues of discipline, focus, and execution that also demand accountability. And standing in the middle of all of this is Nick Sirianni. Patullo is a direct choice of Sirianni, a reflection of the head coach's trust in a more controlled, conservative, offensive approach. If Patullo is let go, responsibility inevitably shifts to Sirianni, who will have to prove he can reinvent the offense without losing the locker room. Jason Kelce, even in retirement, still thinks like someone who lived inside that environment for years. He understands that the relationship between coach and player is far more complex than it appears from the outside. He knows firing a coordinator can solve part of the problem, but it can also create new ones. At the same time, the NFL doesn't wait. Championship windows close quickly, and patience has never been a defining trait of Philadelphia's fan base. Kelce's comments don't end the debate, they deepen it. They remove the comfort of the simple narrative, fire the coordinator, and move on. They force the organization to look in the mirror and ask whether it's dealing with a personnel problem, a schematic problem, a mindset problem, or all of the above. In the end, perhaps Jason Kelce's greatest contribution was this: reminding everyone that failure doesn't belong to a single name. It belongs to a combination of decisions, execution, and choices that together led the Eagles to another frustrating playoff exit. The offseason that begins now won't be just about changing pieces. It will be about defining identity, about deciding whether this team wants to continue prioritizing control and safety, or whether it's willing to take risks to climb back to the top. Kevin Patullo may not be the only one responsible, but he has become the symbol of an offense that, when it was most needed, went silent. And in Philadelphia, offensive silence in the playoffs never goes unpunished.